the car that I'm drawing this evening?
Sure. So I'm Jeremy Rickman. I live in Oxford, and I have a TVR S4C, which is the last of the S4s that they made. They made about 2,600 of them, from 86 to about 93. And the S4 was the last of the S's. They did 34 of them because they wanted to drop a V8 engine in. So mine was a V6 Ford Cologne engine, and then they put the V8 in and called it a V8S. So I guess mine was the last of the S's before the V8S came in, and I've owned it since 96, so 25 years now.
25 glorious TVR years.
Yeah, and most people will be sitting there thinking, oh, I bet it's let him down and broken down, and you know what they're like, the reputation of TVRs. Actually, in those 25 years, touch wood, very little has gone wrong with it. I've probably put, I don't know, 30,000 miles on it in that time, so I've not exactly killed it, but it's been my commuter car, it's been stored while I've been living in the States, and now it's my weekend car, because I also have a Tesla, amongst other vehicles, which I'll tell you about later. But yeah, it's been a brilliant car, and I can't let it go. My kids want to have it after me, so I suspect it's going to be in the family for quite a while. Well,
that's always good to hear. Funny, talking of Teslas, my neighbour has just arrived home, and he's got a Tesla 3, so he's just doing the kind of, you know, that funny kind of reversing noise that it makes.
Yeah. I've got exactly the same car. It's great.
It's like a little mini ghost going backwards.
Exactly. So, it's a cracking car.
Yeah, he's just he was in a Golf, and now he's gone a Tesla. So I can always hear when I'm out, because I'm drawing in my mobile car studio, so I can just hear when the neighbours come home. So I now know that he's arrived home. There we are.
Very good.
Anyways, I go off. I've gone on a tangent there, but I'm excited to hear about your other vehicles that you have in the garage, as it were. But I'm gonna go at creating your TVR S4C, as you have named it, as you've said. So this is known as continuous car drawings. So basically, as soon as the pen goes down on the paper, I draw the entire outline without taking the pen off, essentially. So hopefully that makes sense. Hence why it's called continuous car drawing. And also, I've been doing it continuously since March of last year. So the drawings have been this kind of, you know, during COVID, during the pandemic, and it's something that's really taken off. And obviously working with Heritage Classic Car Insurance, we've been doing a number of their customer vehicles as well, which has been really exciting. So this is, I think, number 7 in the series of them, but also number 1061 in terms of the whole series so far.
Wow, that's a lot of cars.
It is, quite a few, but we haven't done one of these yet, which is really exciting. Done a few TVRs, so Chimeras, Sagaris, the kind of the usual suspects in the TVR world that you might say. So it's really exciting to do something a little bit different, and it's in, is it? I'm correct, it's Silverstone green, is it?
It's called Cooper green, actually.
Cooper green.
Yeah. So I mean, most people will look at it and think it's British Racing Green, but it's officially called Cooper Green.
Lovely. I did read it earlier, and I was like, I knew it was like an iconic British brand, and I was like, I knew I'd get it wrong as well. But never mind. We'll move on. Right. So I'm going to start drawing. So as I say, as the pen goes down, I'll draw the entire outline.
James Motto Fest.
Hang on a minute. So sorry, somebody rang me right at the wrong point then.
Okay, I'm just going to go somewhere where I've got a better Wi-Fi maybe.
Right. Are we all okay?
Yeah, I'm good. Are you good?
Yes, I'm sorry. Somebody rang me just at the wrong point then. So.
That's why it went off.
That's why it went off. If it goes off again, I'll have to hang up on him again. I have to run out the car and just make sure we're back. So we're all okay. We're all back. So that's fine. Right. I'm going to start with the outline of this TVR. So let's start with your car history, as it were. Before the TVR, where did it all begin for you?
Okay, so I'm going to go way back because this all comes from my dad, who's, I'm pleased to say, is still with us. My dad was a vintage sports car racer, and so I used to travel around the various tracks in the UK while he was racing an old, it's called a Talbot AO90, which was one of the Le Mans cars from the 30s, and he used to drive one of those every weekend. So we were in the pits, we were smelling the old Castrol R, and I got a bit of a bug, and fast forward to a few years later when I wasn't a little tiddler anymore, and my brother's girlfriend's brother was racing TVR Tuscans. This would have been around about, 1989, something like that, and we would follow him around. And one day we were at the Birmingham Super Prix, and this is sort of one of the support races to the Formula 3000s, and Richard, his name was racing, and he turned up in this beautiful white TVR S1, which obviously had been lent to him or given to him by the dealers who were sponsoring him. And I just fell in love with this car. I've always been a bit of a 60s retro guy, so I've got a couple of old 1960s scooters in the garage, and I just fell in love with the look of the car. And I vowed that when I had enough money, I'd go and get myself one. So I think it was 3 or 4 years later, I was working in London, and I found this one in a dealer in Knightsbridge at HR Owen, and it was only 3 years old, one owner, 12,000 miles, and that was it. I had to have it. So that would have been in 1996. It was registered in 93, and and then I started using it as my everyday car. So my heritage really is through my dad. I've never been a racer of cars. I've never done a track day. I leave that to my brothers and dad, but I just happen to love sports cars, and this is the one. And I've looked at others, I toy with I've got this Aston Martin thing that I want to get an Aston Martin one day, and I keep having a look at them and then deciding not to do it because I've still got the TVR, and then didn't want to sell the TVR, and then it sort of stuck with me. So 25 years, and I think I paid 20 grand for it, and I suspect it would get somewhere around 12 now, something like that. So it's actually been quite a good buy in that sense because it hasn't lost a huge amount of money. In fact, I suspect it dipped down to about 7,000-8,000 quid, but now they're rising in price again, and it's a very low mileage example, and its chassis is in fantastic nick because I've been looking after it every year and wax oiling it and making sure it stays in tip-top condition. So yeah, I will not be parting with this car for some time.
That's always the trick, isn't it? It's keep them in good condition, and so that the rust doesn't creep in anywhere, because that's once it does creep in, it's like chasing it around the whole bodywork, isn't it?
Well, the trouble with this particular TVR, and I suspect all of them, is it's a pretty big chassis, and you'd have to have you get a bit of body off if you get rust, if you get holes in the chassis, because it's an MOT fail, and a body off is typically minimum 3,000 quid's worth of work. So because if you're going to take the body off, you start doing all sorts of things just to make sure that you only ever have to do it once. And I've not had to have the body off yet, so I do not want it to happen, which is why I look after it so carefully. And it used to be driven in the wet when I was commuting in it, and I used to drive from Windsor down to Bracknell every day down the M4. But after about 3 years of that, I retired it, and as I say, got myself a company car and ended up using it for weekends. And it's in fine fettle at the moment. I get it looked after by. It used to be Henley Heritage. There was a brilliant TVR dealer in Henley, and they then closed, and I now take it down to a place called Straight 8, or STR8 is the way that they actually spell it, and they're not far from me, and they do a lot of work on TVRs. So that's looking good.
So hopefully you can see the outline there. So started here, signature down here, all doing one single line without taking the pen off the paper. And now and that all whilst talking to you, whilst we're introducing that. So now to get the green pens out and crack on with this. So
brilliant.
Earlier on, you mentioned about some of the circuits you used to go around with your father to the races. Is that the likes of like Goodwood and Donington and Mallory and those kind of circuits?
Yeah, so the ones I remember most are Thruxton. They seem to be at Thruxton all the time.
It's a super fast circuit, very fast circuit.
And Brands Hatch. So they ventured north every now and then, but they would be the four that I remember most probably.
Yeah.
but the thing about it is that smell. It's that Castrol smell, which you don't get anywhere else. And we all frankly got hooked on it. We've actually been looking into the heritage of those old Talbots. There were 4 of them. They were called PL 1, 2, 3, and 4. And I think maybe one of them still exists. But it's it looks like the big old Bentleys of the 30s. And it was white, and I think it had like a 2.5 litre engine in it. But I was just intoxicated by it, and they were racing. It was a vintage sports car club, so they were racing all sorts of different vintage cars at the time. And I thoroughly enjoyed it. And then we used to go down and watch racing at Brands Hatch when I lived over that neck of the woods. And then, of course, the TVRs turned up, and that's when we decided we'd start watching them. So, and I was at Alton Park about a year ago watching TVRs as well. They had some sort of a meet, I can't remember exactly what, so I took mine down and stuck it in a field with another 200 TVRs, chatting with them.
I mean, Alton Park's a great circuit. I love Alton because it's so twisty and turny. It's a really good spectator track as well. It's a really cool track to be at.
Yeah, it's fantastic, absolutely superb. Not that I've raced it personally, but maybe I need to do a track day at some point. But my brother's got a supercharged Elise, and he drives me around in that thing every now and then on track days. And my goodness, I'm not sure that I could do that sort of level of driving, so I'll leave that to others.
Yeah, but the Elite, it's in a similar vein to the. But the TVRs were more about a lot of grunt up front, so you had V6, V8 engines, whereas the Elise is a 1.6 supercharged, lightweight. It's a track, kind of a track car, a bit like Caterhams type of thing. So
exactly, it's like a go-kart, frankly. My brother's Elise. But rich history in the family of these types of cars. And as I said earlier, we've got a few cars now. We've got the Tesla, which I run around in, which actually my wife uses more than me, which is it's a Model 3, which I absolutely love. Thoroughly recommend it. And of course, with the fuel shortages, it's been even better.
It's been a bit more. You could drive past with a little smile on your face.
Yeah, exactly. Not smug, of course, but
just
a smile.
No, just a smile.
And then I've got these 2. I've got a Lambretta, which is a very rare Lambretta in a SX200, which is a 66. And it's completely fully restored. And an old Vespa 150S, which is also 1966, actually, the year after I was born. So I've got far too many of these toys to play with and not enough time to get out in them. But the TVR is probably the one that gets out the most.
Yeah. So you also mentioned the Super Prix, which is obviously a really a race that was done around the city streets of Birmingham, and like I said, there was a series of support races. I think there was an XJ. There was definitely a touring car race, and I don't know whether some rally cars, some 6R4 rally cars and stuff went around it as well.
I think you're probably right. Yeah, of course, I forgot about the touring cars. Well, what I remember most about that place is when the Formula 3000s were going around, you couldn't hear yourself think. The noise was absolutely ridiculous. And, of course, it was echoing around all the buildings in Birmingham, so it really sort of was quite intense. But, I used to love the touring cars. Crikey, I can't remember the names of all the drivers now, but I used to watch that avidly. And the 6R4s, actually. Yeah, it was good fun. It was a good day out. It's a shame they don't do that sort of thing anymore.
Well, I just can't imagine the health and safety form being signed off now. Like, we're going to race a load of really fast cars and shut down the city centre. Will that be okay? No, absolutely not.
It's just not going to happen anymore, unfortunately. No, you're right.
Yeah, well, we have that in Coventry. Yeah, we have an element of that in Coventry with the Coventry Motor Fest, who, they do shut down the ring road for a weekend and have a demonstration runs, as they like to call it. Right. But it's not the same as what the Super Prix was, but it's as close. Yeah, it's similar in terms of its idea anyway.
Yeah. So when I got this car, it was on a K-Reg, and I always wanted to get a number plate which reflected the name of the car, which of course is an S4C. So the closest I could try to get was TVR 54C, and it was never available. I don't think it had ever been released by the DVLA. And so I checked it every year, and nothing was going on. So I just left it as a K-Reg, and then about 3 years ago, it popped up, and I was able to get it, actually, and I didn't have to pay too much for it either. So I've finally put this lovely number plate on it, which sort of talks to the actual name of the car. And there's not much more I need to do with it now. It's all pretty much finished.
Yeah, I mean, I've got a car currently going through restoration, so yeah, the final touches I'm sure will be the cherry on the cake when it when it eventually is done. But I'm a long way away from
Yeah.
deciding what plate goes on it in the end.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. No, it just finishes it off nicely. Of course, because there's only 34 of them around, I don't think it was in huge demand. In fact, there probably aren't even close to 34 of the S4s around anymore. I suspect it's probably more like 14 or 15 of them, which there is a register actually on piston heads that we all sign up for just to see where they are and who's owned them for how long. But I doubt there's too many of them left. And so it's quite easy to pick up the number plate. There wasn't a huge amount of competition for it.
yeah. Well, it's nice that you were able to get hold of it. Like it's something that you were looking for, and it popped up out the blue.
Yeah. I mean, what's interesting about the car, of course, is, as I said earlier, most people would expect TVRs to be something go wrong with it every year. And crikey, when I think of the major mechanicals, the engine, well, of course, it's a Ford engine, so it's low mileage, so there's nothing, I've got to touch wood, nothing has gone wrong really with that of any note. Crikey, the running gear's fine, the gearbox and clutch are still the original. I'm thinking about having the springs and shock absorbers done because they're so old now, but I'm not sure that I really need to worry about it. But no, I mean, frankly, the worst thing that's happened to me actually was a bit of a weird one. It used to, and this is quite a famous TVR S problem, which is it would have a problem starting after already running, so a hot start. And there's reams upon reams of information on piston heads about how you deal with this hot start issue with TVRs. And I was going through that because I had this problem. I'd take it out for a ride, park somewhere, jump back in it, and it just wouldn't start. Turned over beautifully, but wouldn't kick. So in the end, I was messing around the fuse boxes underneath in fact, it's above the feet of the passenger in the passenger footwell. You just drop the carpet down, and there's just this spaghetti of wire and fuses everywhere. And I was tinkering there, doing an MOT. I had to just sort out a light for the MOT, and I nudged the fuel sender, and the engine cut out. And so clearly there was a little bit of rust had gone in there or something. But I changed the sender for about £3.50, and never had the hot start problem again. So that was clearly the issue. I might never have found it if I hadn't been faffing around in there in a fuse box. And it was one of the cheapest fixes you could possibly imagine.
So
very lucky.
Did you add that to the owners, kind of the owners club advice things?
Yes. Yeah. I mean, that hot start problem is notorious. So it's just one of those little things that's probably worth checking before you spend any money on. Well, actually, I changed the fuel pump. There's various things that I changed trying to fix it. In the end, it was just a very inexpensive sender unit. So I was very lucky.
Oh, good.
But that's probably, I'm just trying to think. It's had new carpets. But really, there's very little that I've needed to do to it. I did have to have the bonnet resprayed once, which was a bit unfortunate because the only time I've ever pranged it was going around a corner at 15 miles an hour, and I hit some black ice, lost the back end, and then did a 180. Just very gently did a 180 slowly into this grass bank, and the fiberglass bonnet got cracked, so I had to have that done. So they resprayed the whole bonnet under insurance. Thank you, Heritage Insurance, as usual. Gosh, I've been with them for 20 plus years. And they did a super job. And then literally a week after I got it back, a very large bird decided to deposit some stuff on the bonnet, and I didn't wash it off quick enough, and it literally burnt right through the paint to the fiberglass. And I had to have the whole bonnet resprayed again a week later. I was absolutely gutted.
Oh, one of those.
I couldn't believe it. If I'd washed it off there and then, no problem whatsoever. But no, unfortunately, I had to have it all done. So the bonnet's been resprayed twice, unfortunately. But that's probably it.
So
not very much else.
Had a bit of TLC to keep it. So you say you go out, you do some club events. So do you go out very often with them? Is it kind of a summertime thing?
Yeah, I mean, the one that I really want to do is called the S Club Heaven, and it's basically a meet of all the S's, and they do it around the country. And I haven't done one of those, but I really need to get to one of them because they sound like they're brilliant fun. I think we actually found one once when we were on holiday in Stamford. In Lincolnshire, and there was a whole group of them at Burley House where they do the horse trials. And literally, we went to Burley for the day, and there must have been 200 or 300 TVRs there. So there was clearly something going on. A lot of them were S's. So I think that was the first real. Whether it's an S Club 7, I'm not sure, but that's what we really want to do. So I'd probably go to a meet a year. I'm not like a massive anorak who goes to them all, but I like to go to a few. And I've got kids now who are teenagers. I'm trying to pass on the the love of motor racing and sports circuits. So I'll take them to Brands Hatch and Alton Park, as I said I did earlier, just to make sure that they try to get into the swing of it. But as I say, they will fight over this car if I leave it to one of them or both of them, because they're both insisting that they want me to keep it for them.
So yeah, so it's wanted, that which is of course the main thing. It's
Exactly. It'll be in demand. My wife won't drive it because it doesn't have power steering. The only time she ever drives it is if we go out and I have a drink and she has to drive home. But otherwise, she won't get in it because she's used to having so much power steering in her cars that she just doesn't want to drive it.
Yeah,
which is a shame actually. It's such an easy car to drive though. Actually, nice and quick. But it was certainly quick in those days. In '96, it was one of the quickest cars around, I think. But certainly on the road, but it isn't anymore. But it'll still pull. And it still makes a beautiful noise, which is of course what TVRs are all about.
Yeah, I mean it's that drama of the brand. You kind of associate that kind of the growl of a TVR with you kind of hear it before you see it almost. It's that kind of car. So.
Well, there's a new TVR in the works actually. So of course the brand was bought by a Russian guy, and nothing happened to it in the end. I think somebody else has bought it. There is a brand new TVR. That I think people are putting deposits down now. I can't remember what it's called, but we may see a new one on the road in the not too distant future, which will be it's a supercar or not, I don't know, but it looks fabulous. So I'm looking forward to seeing whether they sell, whether they actually get it into production.
Yeah, it's always interesting when a brand is reborn, or kind of how they use the heritage and how they carry on, which bits of the heritage they carry on, and it's really, I imagine, really tricky for a brand like TVR because everything's going electric and kind of when you put like a V8 lump into something, all of a sudden it feels quite old if it's not a hybrid, or if it hasn't got some kind of electrification to it. So
yeah, it's a good point. Yeah, they may be missing it because it's certainly not going to be electric. It's going to probably have a V8 or a V12 lump in it, I would have thought. I don't know, but but as soon as they've launched it, they'll have to be thinking about electric as well.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So I'm just going to get the shading underneath it as well. But yeah, I'm actually down at Goodwood next week for the members meeting, which I'm very excited about.
Ah, nice.
So I'll be down there creating, doing this down there.
Have you done? We were at the Festival of Speed a couple of years ago, pre-COVID. Took my kids there for the first time. Absolutely loved it.
Yeah, I was there. If it was 2019, I was there with Michelin.
Yeah.
And
fantastic.
I was painting in their stand, creating my other thing I do with painting with radio control cars. So I was in the Michelin stand doing that. So, but I was down at Foz this year, and I did Revival as well. And both really enjoyable events for different events in terms of what they do and what their kind of purpose, but both very enjoyable events.
Yeah, I haven't been to the Revival, and given my 60s interest, I suspect I ought to get there and have a look at it, because I saw it on the TV and it looks phenomenal. I think the thing is, on the TV you only see the racing, really. You don't really see all the other stuff, and you could quite easily lose yourself just in the Revival car park, just in the stuff that people have brought outside, or just in the trade area. And to be honest, I was there from the Wednesday, and I didn't see anything but my marquee, because it was just one of those things that once you're kind of in position, you don't really see much else. It's one of those, but it is very, very enjoyable. Well worth the visit if you ever get a chance to go. It's definitely well worth going. We'll definitely go. I must admit, at the Festival of Speed, I mean, it was the first time we'd been in 2019, and I couldn't believe how many paddocks there were. We went. I think when you go in through the main entrance, you get to the supercar paddock straight ahead, and we lost about 2 hours in there and thought that was probably it. And then we started wandering around and realised there were hundreds and hundreds of more cars in all sorts of different paddocks. So we had a wonderful day, and watched the hill climb. They had all of the Michael Schumacher Formula One cars all on the track there, which is absolutely amazing to watch.
Yeah, no, it's certainly a really special event, and I'm looking forward to the members meeting next week to see, because it is a mix of kind of revival cars along with festival cars. So you kind of have a bit of a mix of both at that event, which is exciting. So
that sounds great. That sounds really good.
Add in a bit of colour around the wheel here as well. And then this weekend I'm actually down at Bicester Heritage for their Sunday Scramble. So the Sunday Scramble event which is
great.
held. I'll be down there on the Sunday for this weekend. So that's another good event that's always worth a visit.
Yeah, well, that's only 15 minutes up the road from me, and my kids are learning to drive up at the aerodrome there at the moment with the young
Fantastic.
drivers. So we ought to be going up there. I suspect they're probably sold out, but it's so close to us. We definitely need to go.
It is a super cool, and what I love about Bicester is it's like it's literally 8 till 2. Like there's such this kind of like everybody rushes to get there, and then everybody just leaves, and it's really odd being kind of seeing it. You go, well, sometimes I don't get a chance to actually walk around, and it's just like cars have been, and you see lots of photos, but once again, it's like it was here, but now it's not. But it's
The other thing we did recently during COVID was we went to Blenheim Palace. What's the name of that? It's the
is that Salon
Privé.
Yeah, it's good.
And the Salon Privé was, it was just chock full of supercars.
Yeah.
And they had a sort of parking area for all the different brands. And again, that is a wonderful day if you get to it. I spent most of the time wandering around the Aston Martins trying to work out if I ever bought one, which one I'd love to get. But and a friend of mine turned up in his McLaren. It was freezing on the day. It was really cold, but wonderful. If you want to go to a really good event, the Salon Privé at Blenheim is fantastic.
Yeah, I was there. I think I went Thursday for that event. I wasn't creating there. I was just I was visiting on the way. I was delivering an artwork down to London, and on the way back, I popped in to see the event. So
that's very good.
It was
great setting, great cars. They had. Have you seen the Twisted Defenders?
Yep,
Yep. Oh wow! Absolutely love those.
Yeah, Charlie at Twisted. I've done a drawing with Charlie. And a couple of his clients actually. I spoke with an adventurer who's got a Twisted done. And yeah, they're properly cool things. Those are.
They are super. There goes my registration number in. Good.
Yeah, let's get that in. Well, it's been lovely to chat. And,
you too. Good to see you, and thanks for doing this. It looks wonderful.
It's not wrong. I'll get an image of it uploaded ASAP.
Great.
So you can watch it back, and there's a time lapse. You'll be able to see the time lapse as well.
Brilliant. Super.
And just make sure I've got all the details, and obviously the Trevor on the front is very important.
Of course. Yeah, I can't go without that.
Can't go without the Trevor. It's way back when I actually, before the factory went, I did visit Blackpool and see where the factory was at least, and there was still some there were some bodies and stuff. Just kind of, the factory wasn't in production anymore, but there were still remnants of it dotted about. So
yeah, I can imagine.
It's.
They had all sorts of prototypes and bits and pieces lying around. They used to borrow bits from one car and put in another. So sometimes when you need something mended on the car, you never quite know which bits, which components you've got in your car, because they did tend to sort of mess them around or mix and match them a bit.
But I mean, back in the day, that was what was done. Yeah, like it was just another bit. It's the same with a lot of pre-production cars, and you kind of hear about then all of a sudden they'll find a lost race car because it's got all the bits that were used on something, and so
exactly those little orange front indicators are from I think it's from a Leyland DAF Sherpa van, and they're actually really difficult to get hold of now. So if you happen to be unfortunate enough to crack one, getting a new one is so difficult. There's a few people that have got them, but they're quite difficult to get hold of. Whereas most of the other things are all Ford, so they're not too difficult to get. But there's one or two that are really tricky.
Oh, right, okay, maybe. Yeah. So I did a drawing of an Aston Martin, and he took it on track days, but he taped his indicators in because they were one of the most valuable bits on it. It was like, if I lose the indicator, it's really valuable. So I mean, it looked really cool because the car looked great with like these race duct tapes over the front headlights, but it was genuinely there to keep the lights in, not to make it look any cooler or any kind of aero benefit. It was literally to make sure his lights didn't fall out. So
crikey.
Right.
What's the oldest car you've done?
Oh, I've done a few kind of vintagey kind of cars, but it's a bit of a real mix. Like that's what I really like about the project, is that it's not just F1 or touring car, or it's people, it's people's cars Whereas when I paint,
Yeah.
I generally paint an iconic car that people like. So
Yeah.
it's a very different method, thing I'm creating, but I enjoy it because it means I probably would never have painted something like this. Whereas, creating it for you and talking about your car with you is what the whole project's about. It's talking to people about their passions of vehicles. So
Brilliant. Yeah. Very nice.
right, I think there we are. There is, and its number, I think it's 1061. I think I'll get that double checked.
Wonderful.
But there we are. There is.
I love it. That's superb.
There is your
Great work.
little TVR as a continuous car drawing, and I'll get that posted online ASAP, and you can re-watch this video as well on Instagram, and it's also live on the Heritage Insurance Facebook page as well. And I'll send you over the time lapse of it as well, so you can kind of see its creation in 30 seconds or so.
Brilliant. Thank you so much for that. It looks fabulous. Great to have a chat with you.
No worries, mate. Well, take care. Have a good week, and we'll
you
speak
too.
soon. See you later.
Cheers then. Thanks.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
There we are. There is the TVR as a continuous car drawing. Thanks very much for watching, and we'll be back next week. See you later.